Welcome to this webinar. There's a couple of different topics here, starting with DevOps and MLOps in one platform. And then if you notice the agenda, there is also an AWS topic coming out of code commit and what's available from GitLab. And the neat thing here is GitLab has been a really important part. Ethicode is an independent company. We serve DevOps tools of all types and partners. But GitLab has been really good business for us because so many places have fragmentation in their tool chains. For some reason, individuals and interactions over process and tools in Agile was kind of reinterpreted as everybody use your own tools and do things in kind of your own manner, and it just resulted in a tremendous amount of fragmentation in tools. And GitLab is one of the best solutions in the world to bring everything together. If you want more decentralized development and more empowerment in your teams, then actually I think consolidated tool chains that provide a DevOps safety net is a wonderful way in order to do that. So my name is Mark. I am a principal consultant in the DevOps and Cloud Tower at or business area in Ethicode. I've been in Finland for 19 winters now, which the number 19 started a week or two ago. And I have with me the lovely and talented Juri Ahokas. Hello, Juri.
Yeah, hello from my end as well. I'm Juri Ahokas, located in Helsinki, Finland. As you can see, I'm an old IT warhorse, like I like to call myself. I have a long SysOps background. I have been setting up Nokia Office Store services actually, and you can imagine how old I am. So I'm really super interested of all things related to AWS, and of course the DevOps angle is super important for Ethicode. So that's why I'm here today.
Right, and we'll introduce Dan when he comes. You're gonna have to listen to me a little bit. Just real quick, Ethicode is the biggest DevOps house in Europe. We have 650 people across the land, have been doing DevOps since before it was really a well-known term. We have a large community around us. We just got back from the DevOps conference in Scandinavia. We've had people in our conference like Patrick Dubois, the guy that invented DevOps. We've had a lot of these kinds of people in our communities. We're a full stop software shop. We do an awful lot of DevOps work, and we do migrations, and we do a lot of analysis and assessments. But basically, one of the things that we do at Ethicode is we don't chop wood. We sharpen your axe and help make sure that you have all the best possible software tools and processes available. And I'd like to welcome, what is it, number 40 something in the global DevOps champions, Mr. Dan Plumley. And can I go back a slide? I don't seem to be able to go back a slide. There we go. Dan Plumley, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mark. Sorry to everybody for being rather unfashionably late there, having a little bit of an argument with a Zoom update. And thank you, Mark, for stalling and vamping absolutely perfectly there. Yeah, just a really quick introduction from me. If I may just say hello to all of you. Dan Plumley, I'm our GitLab delivery lead in the UK of Ethicode. It's my responsibility effectively to make sure that people are using GitLab to the best of its and their ability. So I do a lot of coaching, mentoring, support, sort of ad hoc consultancy, as well as a lot of our training. I also just really love talking about GitLab. It's sort of my day-to-day. So the next hour is nothing unusual for me other than I've got a camera in my face, and hopefully that passion comes across to you all today. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark. That is me.
And, most importantly, I don't, and we aim to educate, inspire, and explore at Ethicode, and we don't want anything here to be taken too much as a sales pitch or something, but we're really excited about what we do, and we like to talk about it. We work with organizations all over the world, large, very large, and small, as well as we have offices all over Europe and in the United States, and the United Kingdom is still Europe. It's just not EU, right? So all over Europe. A couple of quick things. This is kind of a preview of the trends document that we're going to send out. There's never been more information available to us than ever before on what kind of metrics are available when we build our software, how to measure the value of that software in production, being able to get telemetry and empower developers to be able to, deliver and experiment in production in order to understand what initiatives we should invest in. So real-time insights are better than ever before in the world. One of the things we're talking about today is consolidating tool chains, GitLab being an excellent choice there, but really being able to empower people and allow them the psychological safety that's necessary in order to be able to do the type of work with the level of complexity and cognitive load that we have today. It's a really good choice over developers spending half their time maintaining their own tools. Something that's super important, that's got even more important in the era of AI, we call the DevOps safety net. And this is everything from how you do your test automation and your linting and your static and dynamic testing, to the ability to roll something back quickly, how you use feature flags, do canary or releases or blue-green development. We're also spending a lot of effort on AI-driven tooling. All of this information that we've had available for years, and there have been so many companies building data lakes and just dumping everything in there. And with what's available with AI today, especially being able to process the information that you already have, it's never been a better time. And we also do a lot of work in service management. We have a large Atlassian wing as well. So a couple of quick things here, and we're going to get to our agenda. So on the agenda, software and model development, we're going to talk a little bit about MLOps to get everybody up on the same page. There's a few exciting things that GitLab has to offer, some of which I only recently learned about as well, which is pretty cool. Then there's some reasons that we're talking about AWS and GitLab that we're going to get into a while, and we're also going to show what some of the opportunities are there. And we talk a bit about platforms here and a bit about migrations as well. We are monitoring the Q&A, and it's private. So if you send a question, not everybody's going to see that. And if you don't want us to mention your name, we can also easily respect that as well. But you will get more out of this if you ask a question. And please, anything goes kind of at any level. I think that we can handle that today. But please do feel free to interact.
Yeah, it's like a safe environment here. And of course, if you feel more comfortable sending questions afterwards, by all means, do so.
Yeah. All right. So a little bit about MLOps in a nutshell. So traditionally speaking, what my experience with MLOps, I've been in things like AI recycling robots that look at the things that are going by and help pick the colored bottles out of a stream of clear PET bottles and things like this. But there's a lot of experimentation that traditionally has been done by AI experts, PhDs, kind of in an ad hoc fashion. And the existence of training pipelines is a relatively new invention, like if you compare it to DevOps or Agile or modern software development processes. So one of the neat things here is using GitLab as code repository. There are runners that are available utilizing GPUs natively. So if you're a GitLab customer, you can get access to essentially MLOps runners in order to be able to do the training in a pipeline type of fashion. So there are also built into GitLab artifact repository, and down on the bottom right in the model deployment, there's actually also GitLab has a model registry. So these types of things can be used in order to make sure that you have a structured and repeatable and efficient and extensible approach for MLOps, machine learning operations. So when we were building machine learning models, say in the early 2010s, 2015 even, there was a tremendous amount in most shops of manual work that was being done in order to facilitate being able to train a model that today we have things like LLMs that we're kind of taking for granted, Copilots or Duo, GitLab Duo, that have kind of been trained on our behalf. But traditionally doing this model creation, it not only requires a tremendous amount of work, but it wasn't things that were that easy to put into pipelines. So GitLab has made that an awful lot easier, especially by having, for example, the native GitLab GPU runners and a native GitLab model registry. So kind of the foundations of MLOps. So now we made our own slide version of it, but as you can see, it wasn't quite ready. But there's a couple of interesting points here. Yuri.
Yeah, just to mention that you can of course like mix and match, and then you can like kind of like decide what is the best environment, best platform for you to host. For example, where do you want to deploy your models, where do you want to score your models, and so on. So you can do it totally in one platform, or you can mix and match, whatever suits your purpose best.
All right. Does GitLab offer a feature store? Was a question that's actually already came up.
Yeah, of course, but done.
Yeah, I can jump in there. As far as I'm aware, not in the same way as feature stores on other platforms as it currently stands. As Mar mentioned, we have things like the model registry, so you can store your actual models or deploy your actual models in platform. I don't think there's a feature store currently. What I would say to that is I don't like saying no, because GitLab is constantly sort of evolving, changing, adding. What I would say is keep an eye on that, because probably at some point as GitLab moves towards this sort of ML model. So not yet, but probably would be the short answer. Probably soon.
We had another really good question that popped up, which is MLOps teams are today typically distinct to DevOps teams. It's not only today. There's been a lot of distinction for a long time, and I think this has been kind of a battle in some organizations where the AI science is done a little bit in a silo. And there's not been enough DevOps process, DevOps tooling, DevOps culture and thinking in the way that MLOps has been done. So the next part of the question is, how do you see this tooling consolidation move from GitLab working in practice with those organizations with existing and separate teams? So really, really good question. So the great thing is that the more people that you have working in the same tool chain, the higher level of collaboration you're going to have, the faster things are going to get fixed, the less wait time you're going to have between areas. And we look at like developer portals and catalogs quite a lot in the work that we do with our customers. And the first thing is always about, can we just open up the transparency between the departments? And GitLab makes that a lot easier. And there's no reason for MLOps and DevOps to have to be in different tool chains anymore. I think that's really cool. So thank you for the question. Keep them coming. All right. So this is one of the things that we're here to talk about. I think this is Yuri.
Yeah. This is one of the main topics of today, because I guess we were all shocked to notice this kind of like change of AWS strategy, that they are actually discontinuing some services, and that is quite rare occasion, especially on the DevOps side, which is kind of like trending fast at the moment. And one of those the main things that they informed was that the AWS code commit is going to be kind of like discontinued. So they are not taking any new accounts. So if you create new account, so you cannot access it anymore, and they will not bring any new features for it. They do, of course, the maintenance, so they handle the resources and security as always. But this is the moment when you need to start thinking like what is going to be my option for the future for instead of like code commit. So I think Dan has a really good answer like what could be the suitable candidate for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where Mark and Yuri sort of loosen my leash slightly and allow me to get a little bit biased and a little bit passionate about GitLab, because that would be my answer. Sort of taking a step back away from MLOps just for a moment, just for a second. GitLab is they call themselves the complete DevSecOps package, or the complete DevSecOps platform, right? Mark alluded to it earlier when he said that GitLab is all about sort of consolidating, reducing our context switching, that kind of thing. And that's exactly what GitLab are seeking to do in regards to this sort of MLOps as well, the sort of ModelOps entity, if you like. So alongside the really, really good work that GitLab are doing with Duo, sort of AI tools, they're also moving towards, as we've seen and as we will continue to discuss, sort of MLOps workflow. Sorry, tongue twister there for me. Yes, by introducing sort of the module registries. Yes, by introducing these GPU-driven runners. But also, as the question perfectly alluded to earlier, I fully imagine this will carry on. And I will be a little bit biased at talking about GitLab for just a little bit more in regards to why is that a good thing? Why is that good news? Why would we want to sort of look at GitLab to fill this void that platform tools like CodeCommit sort of leave when they are sunsetted? And the best answer for that is not worded. It's actually on the next slide. It's very visual. The answer to that would be because GitLab have been recognized very, very recently as a leader within the DevOps platforms by Gartner, so on their magic quadrants, as you can see on the slide there. Very much as a leader, not just a leader, but let's be honest, the top leader, as you can see on the screen there. Based on a number of factors, based on the usability of GitLab, how powerful it is, how good it is at doing what it should do effectively. Obviously, Gartner use far more technical terms than that, but I'm aware I don't have hours to be gushing about GitLab here, so I'll boil it down just to that. There was also so that's DevOps general, sort of DevOps platform quite wide. There was also the AI specific Gartner quadrant that they made as well, where GitLab were also a leader in that. So where I'm really going with this, and just to wrap up effectively, is to say that GitLab are being recognized at being very good at what they do. That will continue. GitLab are very, very good at constantly moving on, evolving, if you like, iterating. Yes, by introducing new features, but also making sure those features are good and the best at what those features should do. So I fully imagine the move or the continued move across to MLOps will match that as well. When we start seeing these extra features, the feature stores, the additional features that will allow us to move these workflows fully into GitLab as well.
Great. Yuri.
So as you can see, our good friends from GitLab also provided some slides for us, and here you can definitely see that GitLab really integrates with a lot of AWS services, and like mentioned before, you can really mix and match your like favorite services, so favorite ways of working and combining tools as a like a really real like tool chain, like going forward back and forth between the services. And one thing to mention here, you can see the Code Catalyst here, which is kind of like a successor for AWS CodeStar, which is also like a discontinued some time ago. Maybe seuraava kuva, next slide please. Also, of course, animated slide. This kind of like tells you the story of the connection, CodeStar connections with the GitLab. So you create these connections, and then inside the AWS, either in a console or in other ways, you can like connect these services to your like GitLab repositories and runners. And maybe is there some other way? Yeah. And I have a brief example later on in the slides how you do it with the code build, but this is really the infrastructure picture how it goes with the GitLab. So there is a direct integration which is like secure between these two platforms. Yeah, next slide, please.
Sorry, gentlemen, to interrupt. Would I be able to jump in? Only because we've had a really interesting question in the Q&A from an anonymous attendee. And the question goes, so GitLab are starting to do MLOps/MLOps. They are also offering Duo and building their workflow AI agent. Yep, all absolutely true. Really looking forward to workflows when they come out. But the question is, what is GitLab's end game with all of this? And I love that question. I love the vagueness of it, and I love the pointedness of it. It's a really, really good question. So thank you for that. If I may sort of speak for GitLab a little bit, I would say probably their end game, so to speak, would be to continue being the complete DevSecOps platform, right? I sort of mentioned that during my little spiel just a moment ago, where GitLab's purpose, and for a good long while, GitLab's purpose have been, you can do everything here. You can do the agile portfolio management, you can do the security, you can do the code, the building and the verification, the releasing, the post-release monitoring. So it almost stands to reason that it goes with GitLab's MO, if you like, that they would also incorporate MLOps, MLOps as well. So it is to be the complete platform, the one-stop shop, if you like. That's one of their, if we were to go sort of cynical salesman for a second, that's one of their selling points, is reducing context switching, reducing your tool chain down to simple, small, manageable. That isn't their only end game though, and this is why I particularly like the question. Because it goes so well with the slide that Yuri has just introduced for us as well, the integration. So GitLab is not just a one-stop shop, it's also a pick and mix, if you like. If I was to sort of extend the analogy to Breaking Point a little bit, is that it's just another offering. It's something else that if you're buying a GitLab license, there's another offering. There's something else that you can use GitLab for. You're maybe using a different tool for your project management. You're maybe using a different tool for some of your security scans. Fine. You still have the choice to use a different tool for modeling, MLOps, that kind of thing. But it's GitLab's way of saying, or you could use ours. And ours is probably comparable. It's probably just as good. Yeah, so that was a really vague answer to a relatively vague question, but hopefully the answer was as good as the question was. Yeah, general sum up would be, to complete its offering effectively.
Yeah, I might also like spark more the talk about this, but I see this is as a like a code rush little town. So some are selling the shovels, and some are selling the whiskey to the miners, and some are selling the miners, and some are exchanging gold to the dollars. So we are really in this kind of like interesting phase of history at the moment.
I'll chime in one further bit here, which is that as a developer, what do I want to do? I want to write code. And what is the purpose of my code? The purpose of my code is to get into a user's hands and be validated so that I am able to feel good about the work that I've done. And then, the worst case kind of scenarios are, you have to go through a lot of toil to be able to understand your requirement and then be able to build it. And then the worst case scenario is you wait for 3 months for something to get into production, and then you get a call at 3 a.m. and like, what was I even thinking? And how long ago did I even do this kind of work? So to me, I think the most important thing for the choice of tools that we use as developers is to make sure that we get as end-to-end, as usable across the organization, flexible but opinionated. So one of the things that we do a lot in Ethico to say, look, this tool is more than enough for your needs, and the drone on Mars is getting software updates. I'm sorry, your special cases aren't really that special. So just keep in mind that if you're able to put in something that does as much as possible for you in a pre-integrated way, it's probably going to save you a lot of toil down the line. And then understanding the safety net capabilities, built-in SAST, built-in DAST, the built-in runners, the ability to work in MLOps and DevOps application development in the same way. I think that's really cool stuff.
Yeah, and the automation really kind of like because you know that the stuff that you don't want to do, you always cut corners. You cut corners for documentation or security or like stuff like that. And if you kind of can be sure that these are kind of like automated, that they cover your back, and you can just dedicate your time to the one thing that you really want to do, which is, for example, coding, then this is like really golden time for you at the moment.
What do you say, Yuri?
Seuraava kuva. Next slide, please. So one of the the big beefs of today's presentation or webinar is like how do you migrate to GitLab from code commit, and even this slide is really simple, but these are the kind of like actions that you really need to do, and it's like 8 steps, and they are like pretty simple one. Our friends at GitLab, they have made this really detailed instructions as well, so you can use the QR code to go to link. The link is also in the end of the slide, so you can get it there. But I would rather than speaking of like how to actually do it, because it's as simple as you can look here, is the benefits that you get when you migrate from code commit to GitLab, like all the extra features. Your developers most likely know the GitLab. They use their hobby projects there, and of course there is a huge community behind this, and maybe I can give a talk to or mic to Dan, and he can explain the benefits even more in detail.
Yeah, so it really boils down to effectively what we've been talking about already, and particularly what Mark was just mentioning there around this sort of the single pane of glass, the lack of context switching in regards to what GitLab sort of gives us. Yeah, you sort of mentioned it already. Obviously, I'm very conscious of the fact that I don't want to stand here and just sort of try and talk all the benefits of GitLab, because I could bore you all for hours. But yeah, no, exactly that. It boils down to, look, let's get as much as we can onto GitLab, because all the features are in the same place, because it reduces the context switching, because of the community as well. I mean, it says on the slide just down the bottom there, the sort of big community. I've been blessed to work with GitLab for about 3 years now, and obviously I started not knowing a huge amount about GitLab, so obviously I did a lot of sort of bedtime reading and everything. But one of the biggest helps for me when I was learning it, and now as I'm sort of hopefully teaching the right things, is the community, the forums, whether it's Stack Overflow, or whether it's the actual official GitLab forums as well. There's always someone that's willing to talk about GitLab. It really is becoming sort of that community, that lovely sort of learning community. So you get all of that for free. That's not even something you pay for. That's just what comes with the tool. So it's great.
A couple of interesting things here for me. At our conferences last week, I asked a couple of times kind of offline, like, how many people have GitLab in your house? And there would be a lot of hands go up. And I would say, okay, now how many people have GitLab in your house and you don't know it? And then, kind of everybody laughs. But it's like my first introduction to GitLab was Shadow Ops. Or Shadow IT, where it's always under somebody's desk. If it's not an officially supported tool, under somebody's desk on their desktop, they're hosting a GitLab server. And one of the interesting things that happens then is companies come to us to migrate out of a difficult situation. They might be on a bunch of old tools, and Jenkins is always there, and kind of things like that. And they're looking to defragment and get everybody working. It's usually around something like security and compliance is kind of like the push. Sometimes we do big bang things. We've had stop the presses, and everybody kind of migrate. The big thing is usually about the pipelines. So that's an area that we usually help out a lot. But with the right attention to detail and planning, and you've got the detailed plan in the bottom right corner, but it's almost this simple, regardless of what your source system is, or how many source systems you've got, or how many different pipelines of whatever kind of complexity that you've got. This is the high level recipe. And even if teams are just kind of distributed to do this work on their own, it's not impossible to get out of really difficult situations and get into a nice unified tool chain. And final word on migrations that I think is really important is looking at the cultural shift of a migration in general, where if there's a lot of toil in the development organization, and there's a lot of difficulty, say it's for resolving dependencies, or bug ping pong, or not being able to really have a good level of reuse or things like that. These can be really nice levers of change in order to take advantage of a unified solution that puts everybody essentially in the same place.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I think you kind of like imply that if one silo or one department is doing things very well with GitLab, then the resistance to change kind of like goes down, because
Yes.
the people are talking in coffee tables, people are talking in lunch, they are complaining about their tool chains and old tools and whatnot, and then there is these like people who are happy they are happy to share this, like, oh, you are still doing it this way, okay, maybe you want to come and see how we do it on the other side of the fence.
It's a common and recurring pattern. And yes, that's absolutely right, Yuri.
Yeah.
All right. Seuraava kuva.
All right, seuraava kuva. So jumping from actual migration, we showed earlier the connection between GitLab and AWS, and here is like a really like small example, like how you can run your GitLab runners on AWS code build. So what you actually need, it's of course you need a GitLab account and a project and AWS account and a certain set of permissions to do it. And on the developer tools, you create a connection, which is like it's this code star connection. And I'm not sure if they are still calling it that, but we can go with that. Then on the code build, you build a project, you give it a name, you give it a source as a GitLab, you give those credentials that you created, you create a webhook, and just to mention that they in the creation form they say it's optional, but it's not optional. So you need to create the webhook, and then the picture here is that you can you need to set up the environment where you want to run these. So it's like the provisional model, it's like on demand, or if you are running on reserved capacity. You can of course use like lambdas as well. And one thing worth mentioning, that depending of your like use case, you might actually save quite a lot of money, like from range 10 to 13%, instead of like running it on GitLab. Of course, we need to define these like use cases, but I suggest that don't use Excel, use something else, but just to check that it might be suitable option for you. So seuraava kuva, next slide, please. And on the GitLab side, you create a project and you check that your webhook is actually created, and you create a file that specifies what you want to do. And after you commit it, it starts the pipe build, and you can check the pipeline that everything has been going easily and smoothly. I did not have like previous experience how to do this, and I was able to do it in 30 minutes. And just remember, I'm an old IT dinosaur from the SysOps background, so if I'm able to do it, everybody is able to do it. So here in the example, we are just like querying like what AWS caller identity this connection is using. So super simple, and if you need to something complex, then you contact Dan. But just to say that it was like super nice experience, easy, and of course the link here gives you the instructions how to do it yourself if you want to check it out. Seuraava kuva, I think. Next slide.
Let's check anything further on runners in general, Dan, that you
Yeah. Dan most likely have something.
Only in regards to the flexibility of the runners is the only thing that I would mention. Obviously, AWS Code Build is one way of hosting them and running them, and I won't talk about any other ways because that's what we're focusing on here. But yeah, also the standardization. When you're at this point, sorry, I think my video's just dropped out, hasn't it? Let me hello. Where was I? I was on, yes, so standardization. So after you've sort of created the runner and you've registered it with your project, from there on out, if you're in any way familiar with GitLab pipelines, then it's business as usual. As soon as you're on the GUI with your runners registered, then the study steps would have got sort of 3, 4, and 5 there, where you're creating and running your YAML file and checking your pipelines. It's no different whether your runner is an AWS Code Build. So exactly, just to back up Yuri's point, as soon as you sort of run through the process of registering your runners there, then it just becomes familiarity with GitLab as a tool. And certainly that sort of flexibility whilst also keeping things standardized is another thing that I've really enjoyed sort of learning and working with in the GitLab industry, if you like.
Yeah. And maybe the next slide it was also provided by our friends from GitLab, but it kind of like explains that there is no only one way to do it, so you can like really mix and match and decide like what is the compute that you want to use, and how do you want to configure it, and so on. So there is multiple different ways to do it. Of course, you need to kind of like specify your case, and then think it from the different angles. But there is no one way to rule them all. So you can really mix and match.
Yeah, and you can see why on this slide now why I sort of added in that soundbite about flexibility, just because it formed that lovely little segue into this slide here. Because you're exactly right, loads of different places that you can stand up your runners, just as many different places that you can stand up the GitLab instance as well, whether that's on AWS VMs or not, or anywhere else. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we only have one slide left, like an actual slide. So seuraava kuva. Oh yeah, worth mention. Maybe go back one more. So here is a link to GitLab resources. So there are loads and loads of like short video clips and like really good tutorials and instructionals. So if you want to get ahead, to get started, so then I suggest checking these out as well.
It took me a while to parse that GitLab AWS Lightning. So
Yeah, maybe yeah. So here are some interesting links. I won't go in detail, but there is AWS own blog about the code commit migration. Then like announcement for Code Catalyst. It's now supporting the GitLab integration, which is if you remember the Code Catalyst is going to be the successor of CodeStar and some other DevOps tools at AWS. And then there is the detailed guide for migration by GitLab, Code Catalyst landing page. If you have not been testing it out, I suggest check it out. And of course, also like our own AI bootcamp and hackathon on top of AWS. So if you want to arrange this kind of like two-day hackathon at your company, we can provide that.
And funny enough, Yuri, you've actually taken almost inadvertently the first step in answering the next question that came up on our Q&A there, which was what can Efficode offer us if we are interested in exploring GitLab for MLOps? And as I say, you've sort of nailed one of the things there in regards to sort of training, learning opportunities that we can do. But what else is there in regards to implementation that we maybe haven't spoken about already? And I'm not sure which of us wants to answer that question. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark.
yeah. All right. Okay, cool. So thanks for that. So we do a variety of things. So we do migrations for one, and if you are actually setting up your own MLOps, we have an AI department here that has some expertise in this area, and we do build our own models here at Efficode as well, and we've helped lots of others do so as well. One of the important things I kind of want to remind is although we are a consultancy, we're also managed service. So we do offer GitLab as a managed service, and we can also do this for MLOps for companies globally. We have some very large partners and many small SMEs as well, taking care of their GitLab for you. And then a couple of other things just to mention in terms of migrations. We do a lot of work there. We can coordinate helping you do your migration, or we can do your migration for you and then work with you in order to make sure you understand all of the benefits. So just a few things there. And then there's more people who are doing fine-tuning models, especially, and building models of their own than ever before. And it's something we have a lot of expertise and a lot of work that is going into at the moment. And we transfer all of the IP. We show up with code and expertise, and we transfer all the IP and all the knowledge that we can to our customers when we work together. So thank you for that.
I can maybe continue a little bit. The hackathon bootcamp that I mentioned. It's like the first day is mainly like a cloud agnostic, mainly about AI itself. It's of course we can like fine tune it to company's needs or customer needs. Some ones that it's like a really democratized thing that it goes through the whole company, and some customers want it just for DevOps. So it depends like your interest, and of course it also it's related to the maturity of your like company. Like, are you already doing it, and are you looking ways to fine tune it, or are you just in the beginning of your journey? And the connection with the AWS is also that if you have like really good concrete case. So I suggest that you contact me, for example, and we can discuss with AWS and maybe also get some funding to get some projects going, and those kinds of options we also offer and help with our customers.
We have a few minutes left for any questions, and you've got some expertise in DevOps, GitLab, AWS, Agile, lots of other things. I was trying to go back on the slides, but this one gets stuck to an earlier one. So we have a couple of minutes to take questions, and usually our opinions are very expensive, so this is a good opportunity for you if you would like a little bit of free information. But we'd be happy to answer effectively on any kind of question that comes along.
I think while waiting more questions, I think Mark, you could maybe explain a little bit more about the AI safety net, because I think now that the world is going forward so fast, also making errors is faster, and those errors usually also are more costlier than before. So maybe you can share a few thoughts about the AI safety net.
Good question. So the way that we have been building AI-enabled software development with our customers is to focus on the DevOps with the AI together first. So I'll give a couple of cases. Every successful company that has software within it, not even just software companies, but finance, banks with IT departments, healthcare, everybody's got a legacy, right? So what do you do in order to be able to leverage that legacy better than before? So with the AI tooling that we have, we put in agents that look at, do you have a Confluence or Wiki or Internet, customer contracts, specifications, no matter how old or out of date they were when they were written, even. We can look at things like even change logs. Of course, we look at, whatever's in your change management kind of ecosystem. So we leverage that information, and then we use it in order to create, and the code base itself, and we use this in order to create unit tests. And the pivot point for the unit tests is this thing called Gherkin. And Gherkin is a syntax that kind of goes beyond a user story to have a testable, acceptance test driven kind of situation. So that being the pivot point, Gherkin is human readable and machine readable. So we're putting that as kind of the center point. So we use the AI in order to leverage all the information we have to create something that's human readable. And if that's what you believe the software should be doing, then you get a unit test or integration test or a different level of test. So the DevOps safety net to us is first using AI in order to build the capabilities to test your software that you may not have had well enough before. And then using a variety of different tools. We work with pretty much anybody that has valuable software tools. Using a variety of tools, we can create maps for doing refactoring or creating test cases based upon a new feature request to make sure that regressions aren't happening kind of wildly as software is developed on top of legacy environments. So lots of different really exciting stuff there. I mean, I grew up leveraging legacy code and web enabling, things like COBOL and all this kind of stuff. So to actually be able to see now that we can use AI in combination with DevOps tooling to create a safe environment to be able to refactor that stuff and kind of push it forward. So what do we see about AI tooling landscape and LLMs in general? I'll say a few different things. The first one is that training data is source. So the lack of open source training data being included in models to me is a concern, and it's a concern that a lot of people are sharing. all the LLMs have bias, and it's important to understand that bias and to watch out for it. Because the bias is the people that write all of the information on the web. There's a lot of bias on the internet, isn't there? So you got to watch out for that. The thing that LLMs are the most useful for me, and the way that I see this, is it has to do with working with the information that you already have. Right. So I don't do a great deal of research per se on new topics or try to get LLMs to give me innovation. However, I do use it a lot, and the tooling that we work on in EFICode a lot, it's about how do you manage the information that you have and find the questions that you don't even know to ask of the things like all the stuff, all the artifacts that are around your software, specifications, contracts, change logs, all these kind of things. So that to me is really, really tremendous. Privacy and security. I mentioned the models as training data. That's an important thing. Understanding what you're working with and what the limitations are. Can you say anything about GitLab Duo privacy and security, Dan?
Only again, building on top of what you've sort of already said. So GitLab are very transparent in the models that they use. A lot of Duo, the AI side of things, is driven by models that are open licenses but have been trained what we'd call responsibly, of course, in the air quotes. So they're not sort of stealing proprietary code IPs from elsewhere. How concerned should I be about privacy and security? Yes, I would say concerned, not worried, is the answer that I would give there. Obviously, it's as much our responsibility as users of the LLMs, as the models, as much as it is GitLab's to make sure that we're using them correctly, using the right ones. But yeah, certainly, again, talking with a GitLab bias, the transparency that GitLab have always shown in everything that they've done transcends across to the AI models that they're using as well. And the information's there. It's just up to you to do the reading, if you like. Make sure you're happy with the underlying models, the Gemini and everything else that's powering the Duo features. And yeah, just check that sort of fits in with your industry regulations, I suppose.
Yeah, and like Mark said, your own data is going to be the differentiator of you inside this gaming field. And of course, speaking from AWS angle, of course, when you are creating knowledge bases of your own data, that data don't go in the models that the AWS is using for other customers. Of course, you can train your own models with your own data, or combine models with your own knowledge bases. So that's one of the things that you can also keep in mind.
Yeah, and that's also something that I completely forgot to say, but is also very relevant about the GitLab Duo as well. No data, again, GitLab are very vocal about the fact that no data leaves you.
Yeah.
No data is then used and ripped to train their own models. So your data stays your data. Yeah, thanks, you.
Yeah, and one really good thing that the customers have really liked when we suggest that now it's like perfect time to go and dig your backlog graveyard for those ideas that were not possible a couple of years ago. So now it's the time. Now, if you had that best idea ever, but there was no means to do it, now most likely there is. So pick up the shovel and go digging there.
And one final question I'll answer. Opinionated structures for ML project repos and pipeline templates that those who adopt GitLab for MLOps can use as a basis for their setups? Or are you facing mostly organizations that have already specified theirs? Even if you've already specified yours, we're going to give you some opinions. Yeah, we do have some opinionated structures for how to put these things together, and it can be really valuable, especially in the green field, but also in the brown field, to say, okay, here's a structure that we know works. And sometimes I'm happy to like you'll see somebody that says, well, but we can't do this because of our security and compliance or this or that. And I said, well, you have a competitor that's able to do it. So what are the kind of things that we need to look at together to make sure that you can also be competitive in this landscape? But yeah, we do have also some opinionated structures for machine learning repos and for pipelines. But I think that's our time.
Yeah.
So
Do we get a couple of sentences at the end? So I would like to thank, first of all, our other presenters and also, of course, the audience. If you have any questions related, especially AWS, for example, Amazon Q, Bedrock, SageMaker, just feel free to contact me.
Yeah, and I would say exactly the same again. Thank you, Mark, Yuri, and thank you to everybody that came as well. And I would give you all the same open invitation. If there's anything that I can do to help, particularly around GitLab, as I said, that's not just a job, it's a passion of mine is GitLab. Please do shoot me an email, let me know, and we'll have a chat.
And we are ourname.ourname@ethicode.com. So now you have the keys to the castle. So welcome inside. Thanks for being an engaging audience. And we're going to sign off for now, but it's been brilliant to be able to talk to you. Thanks for sticking with us.
And like I promised, it's pitch dark now. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.